afternoon on this last day of January. You're watching the English News. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's stories. The head of the parliamentary Future Bloc, MP Fuad Sanyura, in commemoration of fallen Minister Mohammed Shatah, takes the opportunity to talk about Lebanon. Lebanese officials receive warnings from foreign countries over attempts to drag the country into a new confrontation with Israel. And an Egyptian Interior Ministry employee is killed in North Sinai following a series of attacks claimed by the Islamic State. The head of the Future Parliamentary Bloc, MP Fuad Sanyura, is lashing out as Hezbollah's chief, Hassan Nasrallah, describing his remarks on shattering rules of engagement with Israel as hasty and individualistic. Sanyura considered that yesterday's speech does not respect the Lebanese nor their rights and inflicts only more damage. He declared on Friday that the party no longer recognizes the rules of engagement with Israel, saying that it has the right to respond to an Israeli attack in any way or time it deems fit. The Future official also criticized the heavy gunfire that coincided with Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's televised speech, saying it does not deserve Hezbollah's goals. Justice Minister Ashrafifi has tasked the public prosecution to seek the arrest and penalization of those who opened fire in celebration of Nasrallah. So, Lebanese officials received warnings from foreign countries over attempts to drag the country into a new confrontation with Israel, despite Prime Minister Tamam Salam's moderate stance from the latest developments along the border. According to An-Nahar newspaper published on Saturday, U.S. and French officials contacted several ministers to stand on the cabinet stance from Hezbollah chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's speech. Nasrallah declared on Friday that the party no longer recognizes the rules of engagement with Israel, saying that it has the right to respond to an Israeli attack in any way or time it deems fit. Ministerial sources said that Salam's moderate position from Hezbollah's attack on Israeli troops in the occupied Shabaa farms on Wednesday should have been met with the same tone by Nasrallah. The sources considered that Nasrallah's speech could further deteriorate the situation. Speaker Nabih Berri is stressing that Israel shattered the rules of engagement after its attack on Hezbollah's convoy in Syria's Quneitra, pointing out that the party's retaliation does not violate the UN Security Council Resolution 1701. It was clean, he said, and fully examined, that occurred on occupied Lebanese land. Berri's visitors quoted him as saying in comments published in Al Jamhuriya newspaper that he stressed that Israel violated several times the rules of engagement a day after Hezbollah chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah declared that the party no longer recognizes the rules of engagement with the Jewish state, saying that it has the right to respond to an Israeli attack in any way or time it deems fit. 2 Israeli soldiers were killed and 7 wounded on Wednesday in a Hezbollah attack on the military convoy in the occupied Shabaa farms. An EU delegation is announcing that it has pledged 37 million euros in emergency winter aid to Syrian refugees in Lebanon. European Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management, Christos Stylianidis, who met with Prime Minister Tamam Salam in the Grand Sarai, announced that the grant will also go to help Lebanon cope with the large influx of Syrian refugees.
The Syrian refugees crisis is the worst humanitarian crisis of recent times. Its consequences will last for decades. It especially affects the most vulnerable parts of the population, women and children. We cannot allow a generation of Syrian children to be lost. That is why we have to act now, not tomorrow. That is why Europe is here. I'm here as Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid to show the European solidarity is strong. European solidarity is tangible. This is why we are together with my colleague. We have just met with the President of the Council of Ministers, His Excellency, my Tamam Salam, to express this solidarity and the full support to Lebanon by the European Union. This is the same message we gave to the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Social Affairs, Interior and Education. Lebanon, all of us, we recognize, is sharing a huge burden. It is hosting the world's largest number of refugees per capita. Here in Lebanon, 1 person out of 4 is a refugee. Lebanon is not alone. The European Union stands by the government and the people of Lebanon. Our presence on the ground now is a vivid proof of our commitment, a long-term commitment to help. The European Union, with its member states, is the largest donor in the Syrian crisis. More than 3 billion euros mobilized so far. The European Commission has already given 172 million euros in humanitarian aid to Lebanon in the past 2 years. With needs growing every day, we are stepping up our humanitarian assistance. This year, the package of humanitarian assistance for Syria and neighboring countries will be 136 million euros. 37 million will go directly to Lebanon. We have a collective responsibility to continue to protect these vulnerable people, to ensure that they have access to basic needs, to shelter, to livelihoods, to health care, especially to education, to protect their lives and protect their dignity. This is an obligation for Europe, for the international community also, and we are here to let the refugees and the people of Lebanon know that we stand by them.
An Egyptian Interior Ministry employee was killed in North Sinai, security officials say, 2 days after jihadists aligned with the Islamic State group killed 30 people in the peninsula. The 50-year-old who worked for the Road Traffic Department was shot in the head in his home in the regional capital of Al Arish on Friday night. The Sinai has witnessed a surge in attacks against security forces claimed by jihadist groups since the July 2013 ouster of Islamist President Mohammad Morsi. On Thursday, militants from Ansar Beit al-Maqdis, which has pledged alliance to ISIS and Iraq and Syria, claimed a string of attacks, including a car bombing that left at least 30 people dead. Subsequent clashes between the army and militants killed 2 children on Friday. Coming up next, John Kerry prepares to head to Kiev as Ukraine suffers one of its bloodiest days ever. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the Future Television English News. 2 purported ISIS fighters interviewed for a news agency working in ISIS-held territory have given the same reason for the militants' retreat from the Syrian city of Kobani, and it is the constant pummeling of coalition airstrikes. On Monday, Kurdish fighters declared that they had released the city on the border to Turkey from ISIS grip after 112 days of fighting. The efforts of the Kurdish fighters, known as the YPG, or People's Protection Units on the ground, were backed by an extensive campaign of airstrikes by the U.S.-led international coalition against ISIS. And according to the interviews given to ISIS-aligned Amaq news agency in Syria, it was those very airstrikes that won the battle for Kobani, referred to by the fighters as Ayn al-Islam. Yemen's Houthi rebels have begun a historic meeting with just one party after leaders of the southern separatist movement pulled out of discussions to form a presidential council to end the country's political crisis. Only former President Ali Abdullah Saleh's General Population's Congress Party joined the 3-day talks aimed at filling the power vacuum and left after Yemeni President Abdurrabbuh Mansour Hadi and his cabinet resigned on January 22nd. The first day of the meeting on Friday in Sana'a was heavily secured by the Houthis, whom Saleh is accused of backing. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is to travel to Ukraine next week to show U.S. support for the government as Ukrainian troops fight pro-Russian separatists in the east of the country. This comes as Kiev's pro-Western leaders and mediators hope to reach a binding truce with pro-Russian separatists, despite Ukraine suffering one of its bloodiest days yet in the 9-month conflict, with 15 troops killed.
I think what this illustrates is it illustrates that there is an element of chaos in the Russian economy. And some of that is a result of the international sanctions regime that this president has led the implementation of. And that is an indication that there are specific and clear economic costs associated with the with President Putin's expedition into eastern Ukraine. There is substantially more financial support that we can offer the Ukrainian government, that as a result of the this instability in their country that's been fomented and aided and abetted by the Russians, they've sustained some pretty significant economic costs themselves. That's why the President earlier this year called for Congress to act on a $1 billion loan guarantee to Ukraine. And consistent with some reforms that they put in place, we'd be in favor of even additional support beyond that in the second half of this year. As the days go by and as Russia continues to refuse to live up to previous commitments that they've made to de-escalate this conflict, those costs are only going to intensify. And we're hopeful that as these costs mount, that it will prompt the President Putin, to reevaluate his strategy.
The night show host Jimmy Fallon is giving his version of his failed date with Nicole Kidman. The host of The Tonight Show appeared on Ellen, which is the daytime host, where he talked about the embarrassing story. Earlier this month, Kidman appeared on The Tonight Show and reminisced with Fallon about an encounter that happened years ago at his New York apartment. Fallon said he didn't realize Kidman had romantic interest in him, but thought she was visiting him at his apartment to talk about her film.
Nicole Kidman, turns out she thought she was going on a date with you.
Yeah, no, this is honestly another thing. I'm really embarrassed about this. But this is like therapy. So this feels good. I can talk to you guys about this.
Good.
I had Nicole Kidman, my friend calls me and said, dude, what are you doing? I go, I'm walking
Well, how long ago was this? Before you're married, obviously.
Oh, yeah. This is 2002, I'm going to say. Right before I met my wife in 2004. So 2002, I'm single, but I don't think about this remotely, my chances of dating. So I think she was named most beautiful person that year. So this is beyond my... So anyway, my friend calls and says, I have Nicole Kidman with me. She wants to meet you, and I think it's about a movie. Bewitched, she was about to make, and I go, oh yeah. Well, she ended up making it with Will Ferrell, and it was great and whatever. So I go, okay, great. Well, what do you want me? He goes, well, come to your apartment. I go, oh my God, you're gonna bring Nicole Kidman to my apartment? Like, this is, okay. What do we have? What do we put out? I don't know what to do. So my friend goes, go get some cheese and crackers. I go, cheese and crackers? I mean, like, I'm seriously living the bachelor life. I have sneakers and video games all over my house. I don't know what's going on. So I go, what kind of cheese? I'm walking into a deli. He goes, some brie or something. I go, what is brie cheese? I don't even know what that is. So he goes, I gotta go. So I'm going in, I go, do you have brie cheese? I really don't know what it is. So I get a thing of, I go to this aisle, I get brie cheese and saltine crackers. And and I go, and I love, but I don't know anything about cheese and crackers. I don't even have a cracker plate. So I put the cheese on a normal dinner plate, and I had the saltines, but I'll never forget this.
Saltines.
I peeled it back, almost like a Disco 70s shirt, where I peeled it back so it was kind of little showy, a little glamorous, and like.
Wait, it was still in the sleeve?
Yeah, still in the sleeve. And I feathered out the crackers, so it was classy. And I totally remember this. And so Nicole Kidman's coming on my show, and I call my friend. I go, dude, Nicole Kidman's coming on. Remember when you brought her to my house? And I was so embarrassed. And he goes, yeah, well, that'll be fun. Tell her I said hi. I go, great. She's so nice. Comes on. I'm telling this story just like this. And she goes, the reason why I was there wasn't because I wanted you for a movie. Yeah. Huh? She goes, no, I liked you. Or something. And I was like, wait, what happened? Wait, are you saying that we basically we went on a date? And then she goes, yeah, it was terrible. And I go, oh my gosh. And so I'm starting to get red because I was ready to tell my embarrassing story, but then it got a little bit too real. It's like, then you started playing video games. And so I go, all right, now you're getting a little bit too close to the bone. And now it's like, yeah, but it all worked out. She's obviously happy with Keith Urban, and I lucked out. I had the best.
Mark, the end of a bulletin for today now for a reminder of our top stories. The head of the Future Parliamentary Bloc, MP Fouad Sanira, in commemoration of Fallen Minister Mohammed Shattah, talks about the situation in Lebanon. Lebanese officials receive warnings from foreign countries over attempts to drag Lebanon into a new confrontation with Israel. And an Egyptian Interior Ministry employee is killed in North Sinai following a series of attacks claimed by the Islamic State. Those are your Saturday headlines live on Future Television. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again tomorrow.